Okay. I'm so sorry, Magusz, please.
No worries, my friend. The idea is really to have a conversation. So, and we have people assisting our conversation, but that's it. So yeah, we are talking about photography, about stories. All of you have different paths with photography and try to tell stories in different ways. So if I'm not mistaken, you are now with a project about more self-portraits. And Rachel, you are much more into nature and photos from nature, while you are focused on black and white, right? So how do you see that this diversity of ways of showing stories can complement each other, but also how do you feel that each one has got their own place in the photography world?
First of all, thank you so much for having us. Thank you, BananaConf, for having us. I'm honored to be here with my friends, and so this is an honor for me. But yeah, so with self-portrait, I'm able to share a message, and that's really why I wanted to start NFT. At first, I started by supporting friends that were already sharing their images and their stories through their images. But then I found purpose in sharing a message through my self-portrait. And so that's what passioned me to join the NFT space and share my story through images. And so the question was, how do we complement each other through our stories? I think there's so much power in imagery and what we see. It stops you, it empowers you, it inspires you. And I think that right there is enough to get us started in the things that passion us when it comes to photography. I'm passionate about photography. I'm passionate about self-portrait work. I'm passionate about community building. And so for me, I'm passionate about supporting my fellow artists as well. And so we complement each other, not just by what we do, but also in the support we give each other.
That's beautiful.
Okay, so for me, storytelling really goes to the narrative. What are you trying to say? And I'm going to be a little abstract here, but when you think about your favorite song or like popular songs on the radio, do you remember the lyrics or do you remember the melody? The melody. You know, you'll remember like the chorus, but then you'll like hum the rest of the song because you remember like how it's supposed to sound, but you don't remember the specific words that artist probably spent a huge amount of time on. And that's the same with photography. You don't necessarily remember a single photograph from an artist. You kind of remember what you felt looking at the piece. You remember the artist if you were able to meet them. You remember the story behind the pieces that resonated with you that you remember. To me, blockchain is the preservation of the melody of each of our lives. Like it is the story and the large brushstrokes that are preserving for everyone else to see, for everyone to be a part of and to engage with in a very beautiful, open way that has never happened before for artists. So storytelling to me, it's beyond just, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about myself. And what I am is a wildlife, landscape, aerial photographer. I travel to super remote places, and I could list all the places that I've been and kind of knock your socks off with what I've seen, but you guys aren't gonna remember that. You're gonna remember, oh, she was a traveler. Oh, she takes photos. You're gonna remember the melody of what my story is. So that's kind of like where I wanted to start.
I definitely should have gone before her.
Yeah.
That was a wonderful answer. Well, I guess simply, I kind of got lost with the question kind of formed a little bit, but I'll go on that vibe. Yeah. Regarding storytelling, for me, it was simply something that happened because of the generation that I grew up in. You know, my mother's Italian, my father's American. I spent time in various different countries. But something that every family had were photo albums, you know, memories that were either on VHS tape or usually something in a magazine that they shared around sitting on a coffee table. And I remember specifically black and white wise, like my grandparents always had those kinds of black and white, you know, literally World War I photos, World War II groups photos. My grandfather was in the military and they had photos of like, you know, just random cities from 1910 and that kind of thing. And so it was automatic storytelling. It's just how things were. So I kind of followed in that path because it became a passion of me wanting to share with my friends and my family where I had been, because I was always traveling. My parents were both in the military, and then my father became a reverend, and that's where I get it from, by the way, okay? And we just went everywhere. And so I would always come back and show my friends and family through photos. Coming into the the Web3 space, I don't think for me personally, and I can imagine a lot of photographers that have to move over technologically, it didn't really change much. I mean, you're still looking at a photo, you're still observing it and getting a story from that. Now you have elements of AI and all those kinds of things which may warp reality and what's real and what's not. But a genuine photo is still a story in and of itself. And so it kind of fits in whatever Web 1, Web 2, Web 3 world that we live in. And that's why I continue to do it, and that's what I love about it. And, you know, it got us here and gets us to hang out. I've seen both of them in like 4 different countries. You ever seen friends in 4 different countries? Yeah, it's you know, it leads to that as well too. So it's great.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's really interesting, these stories. And I think photography has got this power of capturing one moment. Because I'm a visual artist, I draw, but it's something that needs to be flowing through my end. While you either you plan or it just happens by accident, that you just capture suddenly that moment. And that moment itself then becomes a story. But saying that, do you think that it's important also that the people that are seeing your photography understands the story behind it? Or actually, does your story really pass through photography? Or maybe they're going to interpret it in a different way? And maybe we start by you now, so then it goes in a different way.
I think my view on that has changed because the society has changed. And I spent a lot of time branching out in photography because I didn't learn it in a classical sense through schooling and that kind of thing. I used to have point and shoots in the late 80s that later led to, you know, different kinds of film and then eventually digital. So I was shooting everything. But when I got to New York in 2001, I started following people because I didn't have the money to pay for classes and I didn't have the experience to say, hey, I'll be your assistant. So I would just say, oh, you're going to do a thing? Let me go do that thing with you and see how it works. And I did that all the time for about 3 years. And seeing those kinds of activities happen kind of gave me the ability to take different kinds of photos. You see what I mean? So a moment in time for me used to be, this is exactly what happened, and everyone will see this is exactly what happened, and that's it. As times change, society changes. We have so many opinions now. I could show you a photo of my foot, and it would be 10 different things for the 10 different people in here. One would be like, I'll give you $20, you know, and one would be like, oh, new shoes. You know, it's so different now. So I would like to think that people should just make their own observation of the photos that I take. I don't necessarily shoot with the purpose of being too overly predictable in a sense of, I want you to be sad when you see this, or I want you to be happy, or I want this to be beautiful in that sense. But I do want people to kind of gather, you know, that is reality, and that's the story behind it, you know.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Rachel?
I have a long answer, so
Okay, good.
That's so funny. I think I want people to look at the image before they read and be inspired. And maybe interpret it in their own feelings. I am with Fidel, where I think ideas evolved and people evolved. And the more computerized we are, the more digital we are, I think the more we change and evolve. And so I feel like a lot of that changes. But I would love to feel that I'm impacting people in a positive way with the work that I promote, the work that I shoot. And so for me, as long as they feel inspired to do something, or they're feeling it's inspired to do something for themselves, I think that's the impact I want to have.
Okay, I'll keep this short.
You have 21 minutes.
Okay. Well, you said we could go over. So the reason why I got into Web3 was because for the first time I felt that I mattered to my photography. That it wasn't about trying to go viral because I had the best shot of, say, the Eiffel Tower. It was because people were resonating with me and they were wanting to share what I saw in the world and what I was saying, and like they would connect with my caption or like something like that. And so for me, I was like, I think specifically in Web3 and what I love about it and why I'm still here is because it's the artist and the intention and the full narrative of the the life story of that we're sharing and engaging people on. That's really important. But I also come at it from a full-time artist standpoint. I come at it as, this is my job, this is how I make money, this is how I fund all my travels. Like, I can't just do this, like, you know, on the weekends or things like that and just like not care. And I think that pushes me in a way of viewing all of the storytelling from a more business standpoint, from a more of a marketing standpoint. And a lot of artists are like, oh, we don't like that. Like, that feels manipulative. But it's true, and I love it. And as long as I continue to enjoy doing it and understand that why I'm doing the more manipulative marketing, I don't view it as manipulative, but the more of that storytelling marketing, I think it's worth it. And I think that's the power of Web3 within storytelling, as well as for photography. We have that trust of, this photograph is a snapshot of life. Obviously, you can edit and all that stuff, but for the most part, we have a level of trust that other art forms don't have. So to have that incorporated on the blockchain and in like the communities of all around the world, it's I think it's really beautiful. And I totally have forgotten the question and the
It's
point
fine,
of
it's
this,
fine.
but that's about it.
It's fine. But picking in a little bit in what you are saying, also related with Web3 and photography, what do you see that Web3 can bring to photography beyond, of course, the ability of selling it as NFTs and then making some income with that? I see also that probably also brings communities together, friends that can connect now. What other things you see that are benefits that Web3 now it brings to photography that didn't exist before?
Thank you. I see a connection, a worldwide connection immediately, but I also see the potential we have to impact culture. For years in past, we've passed down what we thought our tradition did based on imagery because we couldn't understand languages, right? Since so communications was not as easy, and then that evolved, and imagery and art became our culture and how we related to culture. And I think we still have that impact worldwide, however, it is different. And the more we evolve with technology, the more different that becomes, but also the impact becomes a lot more deeper. But and we reach corners of the world that we would not have been able to. And of course, doing life together allows us to also express ourselves through our imagery. And even a snapshot of us having fun communicates to the world through our web Twitter feeds, the enjoyment that we're having, the culture that we're expressing. And so the impact that we're having in community, in real life, we're bridging a gap that we never saw before. And so for me, I see the possibility of impacting corners of the world that we probably never had in the past through our imagery.
Well, I don't want to piggyback too much on that, but it's in that general sense, yeah. If I had to break it down, at least in my own experiences, what I believe Web3 has added to photography, because photography is a beast. It's never going to, it doesn't need anything to be photography. It's just always going to be. But maybe three things. Definitely expansion. The photos used to be on mainly Instagram and other social media. Now there are marketplaces and there are various other merch and all these other kinds of things with Web3 that sends your same images to all over the world. I saw my stuff in Tokyo a couple months ago, and it's amazing. I would say as well, funds, opportunities. I've been doing this since the early stuff doesn't matter. I've been making money on photography since about like '98, something like that. I've never seen
way before NFTs.
Yeah. It's a lie. I'm like 26, 27. I've never seen as many artists, photographers, young people coming out of the woodwork saying, I made some money, I paid my rent, I got a car, a Lambo, whatever, So it's definitely a financial thing. And also I would say it adds to the addition of more people who are either joining photography for that reason or for passion, because there are so many more photographers, it seems, in this, not only the space, but just generally in the world, And so I think it kind of motivates, for whatever reason, it motivates a lot of other photographers to join the, world of photography. Yeah.
I don't know if you want to add something.
What was the question?
It was about what impact Web3 has got in photography, besides, of course, the income and meeting good friends.
Okay, I'll keep it short because they both covered quite a bit of it.
Good.
But one is empowering, and not just photography, but artists in general. It's very empowering, and where we can share our art directly with people who appreciate art, and they can directly engage and interact with us in a long time frame, not just like oh, I like your art, I'll buy it, and then I'm going to leave at an art festival. Like most art conventions, you meet them, you sell them, you pitch them, you send it to them, they send you a thank you picture, and that's it. And then you promote and you move on to the next. But Web3 and what's happening is you develop a relationship with them. I've stayed at collectors' houses because they were like, hey, we really like you. Now we have your art on the walls. You want to stay with us.
She's not a good example of this.
I know.
Your career probably won't end up that way.
But-
Okay, she's just really cool.
Nobody ever invited
it's-
you, Fidel. Come
I
on.
mean, I love these houses, not gonna lie, because it's like I walk and I'm like, hey, that's my art on their, like right above their bed. But for me, it's empowering for most artists, and like you touched upon it, it's giving us a way to make money off something we love to do, but also in a way that the rest of the world can start to see art as a legitimate career, as a legitimate life choice. It's not just like a hobby. It's not just like, oh, I'm just going to be a little creative over here. And like, oh, I snap pictures in my backyard and suddenly sell them for like 10 grand. Like, to me, it's raising the bar of what art is in a very open discussion kind of way all around the world. We're getting people from all over the world talking about art in a very open way. And that's empowering to art as an industry, to art as a real job, to art and artists as like, this is not just a fad. This is not just like, oh, I'm going to be like floozy and aloof and like weird. Like this is a real thing that people can do and choose with their lives, and it can be respected. Like that to me is something that I would love to see more in the space, and I see it already happening.
That brings me memories when I told my parents that I wanted to be an artist, and the reaction of my father was, okay, but what job you gonna have? You know, that's not a job. You know? But a little bit on segue of that, photography seems to be the main thing that you are doing, but also with Web3, I think you also have some side projects sometimes. At least I know there's the BrunchByFidel. So tell us a little bit about these side projects, because that's also your story. That's what matters. Yeah, I think you also curate some stuff, and you also have some side project. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, so I am the team lead, community team lead for Light Art and Me Llamo Art, and the Me Llamo Art is a nonprofit that acquired Light Art, and through our community, we're able to do IRL events, support IRL events. We're also able to highlight and spotlight artists, which is something that I'm very passionate about. I think more artists, especially artists that are coming up, don't have a way to show their art or a community to belong, and we are a community that we host spaces, we do newsletters, we highlight artists and collectors in this space with the heart and passion to be an inclusive community that welcomes but also have resources available for them. So that's part of what I do in the space.
That's beautiful, thank you. And tell us a bit about the brunch.
Yeah,
It's become quite almost a side event of all NFT events.
yeah, it's got legs. It definitely has legs. Well, the brunch is just kind of an IRL version of what I do online. I try to support people, get people together. You know, I came into the space as a photographer, but everybody knows in the space, you know, every 6 months, like you branch out in any way that you find possible. So I started collecting, and then that exploded, and I started curating other artists because of that, you know, and then you kind of build a following of people who are like-minded, you know, and so you start. I've done a few like 1K projects and, you know, the brunches, and I try to help out, speak at panels and things. It just all turns into just being in Web3. Yeah, it's kind of where I'm at now. What would I like to focus on? Honestly, I'd like to just relax and make money on other people making money. Yeah, and it sounds selfish, right? Like a little bit. I
No,
really
if the other people are making money, it's not selfish.
Yeah,
It's-
I know, but they might stem also. My day job, I teach photography at a university, and so I was always in that mind of that if all these other people have success, like I guess I have success. So from that mentality, if I find a way to get 100 other photographers to make money doing things, maybe I can show them on to people who would find ways to make percentages for me, like galleries do it. I mean, it sounds selfish, but I just want to. I'm kind of, 47 years old. I want to hang out now. Yeah, that's it. That's what I'm doing. And brunches.
Cool. Rachel, do you also have some side projects? Everything is a side project.
The one thing I want to just share is education. And that's for artists within the space of like how to also, create money, how to think about being an artist as a business versus just as a hobby. Because I do think the space does need to mature in a way of how do we view art and value art, as well as how do we share art? How do we share this story of why we're making the art? With AI, we've had this huge explosion of creativity, and I love it. I really do love it. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I hate it. Like, I hate how people are calling themselves artists when, like, they've never fucking picked up a camera or a pencil or a paintbrush. But we all have the ability to create, and we all should be creating within our lives because creativity has been squashed in most of our school systems and most of our jobs and most, like, critical thinking and just thinking creatively out of the box, it's needed. So the fact that AI has unblocked many people to be creative is beautiful. But now we need to really promote and educate other people, and that's where I'm trying to be more vocal in, and that is, okay, so what is this story? Why did you pick the words to prompt the AI? Why did you snap this photo with your, $1,200 phone and shared it to Instagram? Like, why are you sharing your food porn? Those questions of why and those answers really do shape the narrative of your life, and they shape and share the narrative of the relationships that you get from anything, other social medias or whatever. So I love Warpcast. I think there's a lot of potential there for storytelling for artists. It's very exciting, but I won't go into that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We need much more to foster creativity. It's completely, it's interesting to see that in primary schools, when we are kids, we are incentivized to draw a lot and to be creative. But then a certain reach, a certain grade, then we stop that. And it's just memorizing and tests and exams, and it's a bit killing. And then I believe in you also that the AI can help a little bit with that. But sliding a little bit again to the photography, I think the beauty of the evolution of photography, before there was just analog cameras and then became digital, and then suddenly everybody has got a camera on their pocket. Then everybody can be a photographer. And now we have AI. Everybody can make something that it seems like a photography with AI. How do you see the evolution of these tools? And is it something scary, or it's the opposite, that you embrace and say, yes, everybody can be a photographer, even if it's just with AI?
Okay, but AI photography is not photography. I think that is such a horrible, horrible word, because it can look like it, but some people can paint and it looks like a photograph, but I'm still calling it a painting.
Yeah.
So I don't call it a painting photography. That's just ridiculous. So the fact that AI, it's a completely different process, it's a completely different output. It might look the same, but it's the intention, the methodology, what you do is different. So yeah, sorry.
I think Rachel, you teach on AI, and so I value your input here. But I think AI became a tool. So for a professional, AI is a tool. For an amateur, it's scary, and because they don't understand it and they don't know how to manipulate it to use it as a tool, then it became something that they're afraid of, and then they push back by talking negatively about the potential that we have with AI. Eventually, we're walking into a digital world, and we have to learn how to apply AI as a tool, as a benefit, and we see that now being applied into our software, in our editing softwares, to improve how we edit an image of photography. And so I see it as a tool. For me, as a tool. I think that as a professional, a lot of professionals are using it as a tool to benefit us and maybe facilitate also the time frame and the output like that it takes to edit several images. I'm an event photographer in IRL. I have a business in event photography, and I have to edit 3,000, 5,000 images. So AI became a tool for me to output and edit images in a way faster, a faster output. And so for me, AI became a tool through my software, through the software, editing software, right? But the way other people are using AI, and you can speak a lot more into that, I know both of you could, AI became this threatening thing. For me, it's not, it's a tool.
I mean, actually, I guess I have to say that I really don't care, honestly. But I really don't care for selfish reasons. And those reasons are, none of that has to do with what I do, I don't care if the whole world starts doing AI. If I'm the only photographer shooting photos, it doesn't change my life at all. If anyone wants to buy my work, it's still because it's what the photo is that they like. If anyone wants to put me in a magazine or give me a Pulitzer or praise my work or share it in any way, it's still my photos at work. So what everybody else starts to do really doesn't affect that. At the same time, even if machines took over the world and all those AI programs create photos or data that look like photos, I'll still be competing against people who are putting out photos. Yeah. You kind of see what I'm saying? So I don't believe I'm classical enough to be angry that people are doing things artificially and more efficiently than I am, because I still do the real thing. So I don't, people don't want to hear that. They want me to complain and say, Jesus AI. But it doesn't matter. Like, every form of art has that. Every form. People who wrote poetry with the Le Plume, how's it pronounced? Le Plume? She's busy. The Plume, with the ink. We're just writing it thousands of times faster. Doesn't mean that poetry is any difference of what it was on ink. People who build a house with mortar and brick and create a house in a year, it doesn't matter if a machine comes along and creates it out of plastic multiplexes in 2 days. It doesn't really affect what we do if it's our passion, it's our work, and it's our art. How does that affect people as far as sales and money and all those other things? That's a whole nother discussion. But as far as whether I'll still do photography, yeah, let them do that,
Yeah, I appreciate all the because it's a hot topic, but that's why I also think it's important to discuss.
But also I'm maybe lax about it as well, because we've talked about this 1,000 times. If you're in the Web3 space, just turn on Twitter. Every other day is that real? Is it? Next you're going to have, can we branch off? What do we got? 2 minutes? 10 seconds. I was in a conversation a few weeks ago where a lawyer in the space was talking about a case that had popped up where someone was creating pornography for minor pornography. Excuse me, I'm taking a whole different direction. But it was AI.
Yeah.
And it was like, if we bust somebody with this, do we put them in prison for a thing that doesn't even exist? Because that thing was I feel kind of the same way about things. Like, if I create photos and someone creates a photo that's the same photo of a photo I took, but it's not a real photo, those are logistics they're going to have conversations about for years, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I feel you on that, because in the beginning also for me it was a bit scary when I saw first the things. And then also the other reaction was like, but this is crap. People will see the difference, until it started to evolve so fast that now it's much more difficult to see the difference. But at the same time, it's like, it's a power of creation. So why not to allow people to create? And then we need to figure out how to adapt to this and to let it go. But
so I do AI as well as photography, and I used to try to make my AI photography look like photographs. And I realized really quickly that I was just shooting myself in the foot, because I was like, why am I trying to use a paintbrush to make a photograph?
Competing with yourself.
Yeah, I'm competing with myself. This is, and I was just like, yeah, for me, AI, like you said, it's a tool to just expand and explore creativity in a way that I never could before. What everyone can now like use their brains, and honestly, it's beautiful. I think a lot of people have started using different parts of their brains and thinking about things in a little bit different way. I think that's beautiful, and I think that's incredible. What's going to happen in the space? Of course, it's kind of like when we all got access to the internet and Google. The IQ of the human population kind of went down. It might be the same with AI. I think the creativity and the quality level of artists and the stories that they can tell is going to go down. Like we've seen it on our timeline. There's people just pumping out a bunch of AI and people buying it, but it's like there's nothing else there.
Yeah.
There's nothing else behind the hype or like the visual, oh, that's cool.
Do you feel that there's also a need of education? Because like you were saying, it's not only about creating something, but also having these fundamentals about the composition, about the light, about the structure. And isn't this necessary for...
I'm so sorry. I got drowned out. How do we feel about what was the question at the beginning? What did you say? What did you say?
If you need education. Not you, but... But if people in general need education in relation to art to understand also the composition, the light, and trying to understand what is AI and what is not, because also our attention span is very short nowadays, right? Even if you put your photography on X, people just scroll it, and it needs to have something very interesting for them to stop and take a look and maybe zoom out and zoom in. So do you feel that the education is needed also for the mere observer, the spectator that it's just scrolling and seeing photographies? Or there's no point on that, let's just keep telling stories, and if they resonate, great.
So I think education is important, especially as we're learning how to apply it. And of course, if they're scrolling, at least in the image, there's information. I think that's important. I think we need to identify if it was AI and if it wasn't, because we can't say this wasn't AI, but truly it was. And I love that about blockchain, because I think that output, you see truth, you see facts in the transaction. So I think education is important, and I know Rachel's really big on education, but I think it's important because we need to understand there's a difference. I know you can speak on this tons, but...
Can you repeat the question? I got busy listening to you.
if you feel that there's a need of educating people in general about arts.
But, okay, so educating is very different. So I did okay in school, but I also hated it. I hated the structure, and I hate the structure of like a normal 9-to-5 office job. So for me, I love learning, but I like learning out in like the cities. I like learning in amongst people. I like learning by doing something. And I think that's where the storytelling and photography can come in with education in the space. Because I think a lot of us, we've brought a lot of our friends into Web3. Yeah, like they wouldn't have come in because of like, oh, a bunch of shitcoins were making a bunch of money, or because of like punks or apes or whatever. They came in because their friends were like, hey, I'm doing this, and like I can visually see that this is cool and people are paying for it, and I kind of contextualize it. That story of how we got on and what we're doing is what is the education. It is that like missing piece that I think a lot of these like crypto bros are kind of missing out on. And a lot of these like crypto projects, they have an incredible thing that they're doing, and they're building some incredible things in the future. But how do they onboard? How do they get people to actually use it in a way that they want to use it and that's financially beneficial to them? Well, artists and education, we do it every single freaking day. We do it amongst many, many people from all different backgrounds and all different sectors of levels of crypto curious to like, I don't even have Facebook levels. And we get them into the space. So to say education, it's so broad, like I don't learn well on like online classes, even though I've spent a fortune on them. I never even like go past the intro videos.
Yeah.
But I listen to my friends. I listen to the people who are doing it. I listen and connect, right away to the human narratives that are going on that I can relate to. So, yeah, education is really important.
Informal learning and informal learning, yeah. Well, our time is over, but there's nobody else anyway, so I can keep talking. But I would say, just to finalize, for me, I think it's important to be grateful for all of the artists, and especially to understand that they were quite pioneers on Web3. it was interesting to see as soon as NFTs appeared, the artists were like the first wave, and they are still keeping going and pushing boundaries. And I feel the AI also, I thought that in our dreams, maybe we imagined that AI is going to replace blue-collar jobs. And the first thing that it happened, it was started to create art. So it's also interesting that wave. So grateful for that. But then getting back to the story to finalize, what is the next story of each one of you? The next story, yeah.
I feel like that's an interesting question because we are evolving, right? And so I feel like the next story is the next event that we're promoting, or the next thing that we're going to, or the next project that we're doing. And so I feel like that is to be determined in my end.
No plans then, just go with the flow.
I am going with the
That's
flow.
too easy.
Well, I'm
TBD.
trying to meet them in Lisbon in a couple of weeks if I can make it happen. And then maybe, and possibly creating art in the future from Germany, because potentially I will be moving there. So my story will evolve in many different areas. But definitely I want to keep creating stories with our friends, right? And keep promoting other people. And so I feel like, as though it's very easy, I just want to keep doing this life with all of them.
Even without audience, it's fine.
This is fine. This is fine.
No, I appreciate all of you, definitely.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, Rachel, what's your next story?
Well, my next story, specifically with photography, is reclamation. I lost my camera, so I don't have cameras due to a car accident. And so it's been several months of me figuring out, how can I keep telling my story if I can't photograph?
Wow.
I felt like in the beginning, I was like, I had no will to even go out in these amazing places. Like I was in Thailand, Ireland, France, Switzerland, like incredible places to photograph, but I had no motivation to even go out of my Airbnb because I didn't have a camera. And I know I have a phone, and like everyone's like, oh, you can like take really cool pictures with your phone, and I'm like, yeah, it's a camera, but it's not my camera.
Yeah.
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 But what's next for me, even though I don't have a camera, I'm still sharing photographs. I'm still sharing what I can with the photographs I have taken and take on my phone. But it's part of that story. It's even though I don't have a camera, my life is still centered around photography. I still know within myself, I still want to pursue it. So to get back to the camera and to get back to what I want to do, and that is, traveling and photographing and sharing what's going on in this world. That to me is what's next. And it leaves a lot of openness out there. And a lot of people hate like that sort of vagueness of like limbo stage, but I kind of love it because it's giving me time that I didn't take beforehand to really think about my own artistry and my own voice. So when I get that camera, it's not if, when I get that camera, it's going to be pointed in a much more intentional direction.
That's amazing. Quite a challenge. And I can try only to imagine that. But for me, it had happened once that I start my life over from scratch. I lost everything and I started again for real. So I can relate a little bit, but it's a different situation. But for me, at least, the possibility was to understand that suddenly it's not that I lost everything, it's that now I have a new horizon in front. So whatever comes, it's beautiful. Fidel, what's your next story? Some drinks tonight.
I don't even know what's going to happen. I don't even know what's going on in the next 10 minutes. I'll give you what I want and what the reality is. What I want is just, I want to be successful, but I want to be the kind of successful where we all successful. I don't know. I can't explain that. I just want us all to be freaking rich. That's it, because for 30 years of my life, I saw all of us, and by us, I mean anyone that has anything to do with eating ramen noodles because they had to pay for a gallery to show whatever the hell they made for 2 hours, or some street market, or in the back of the trunk with the bucket and the guitar. Like, I just want us all to get rich. I don't care. The reality that I think that will happen, I think a number of us will, and I pray that the number of us that do help the rest of us. Whatever. It is what it is. I mean, you know, that's what I think really could happen. Why? Because I didn't have a job when I came into Web3. I didn't have any kind of hope in the world. I was doing well. I was alive and well. I was, 35 years old. But it was like 45 years old. It was like I didn't have a plan B. 6 months from that, I had $100,000 in the bank. And I never had that happen in my life. And before that happened, I remember I never thought that would happen to me. And 6 seconds after I woke up and I saw that happen, I thought, holy shit, I can make $200,000 or $300,000. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I think we all have those little stories, and that's why we're really sitting here in this room. You know, somebody made $500, paid their rent out of nothing. Those opportunities are there now, and they just didn't exist. So I think that story is going to be the next one, to see the realm that we never even really thought we could ever get into. No chance in hell 4 of us be sitting here right now. I include you. I don't know your work, but I know your work's downstairs. I saw you on a screen.
Exactly.
In Estonia, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So those opportunities for us, I think, are now possible. And so that story really is just going to be something that I don't really think we can even try to begin to imagine.
That's amazing. Yeah, I would keep talking with you all the time. But yeah, I think they need to close this eventually.
Thanks.
And,
thanks guys for joining us.
I really appreciate so much. And if not before, we meet again in Lisbon for sure, no? Yeah. If somebody else also going to non-fungible conference in Lisbon, let's go to the BrunchByFidel and meet also in other places. Thank you so much for everything, and we're going to keep talking for sure. And follow them also on Twitter.